Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Aryeh Warshel, who is a professor of chemistry at the University of Southern California. He's a fellow of the National Academy of Science, and he's the 2013 Nobel Prize laureate in the area of chemistry. Aryeh, real pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
So before I dive into a number of the questions, I think we just have to get something off the table, which is your prize is for what they call the development of multi-scale models for complex chemical systems. Could you describe that in 30 seconds or less?
Okay, I did it once for Netanyahu in 1 minute, so I could try again. It's basically developing computer programs that model how proteins are working. And we could explain later what proteins are doing, but if you could model how something works, you might understand what it is doing.
Okay, so the amazing thing about what you've done, and one of the things we've noticed by speaking with Nobel Prize winners on the show, is that they often get the prize for work they had done not months or years ago, but decades ago, which is your case as well. How is it that you even could imagine that you could use computers to model such things when there simply wasn't the computing power at the time?
Okay, first, really, there was enough computer power, at least in the early 70s, to see how the direction goes. So we never really used too much computer power. We always find smart way to do it. And it did not happen in one day. We first modeled small molecules, and then it became clear that with enough simplification, you could model almost everything. So it's a process, and I started to believe in it quite early, like in 1975.
But not everyone believed in it with you, right?
No, nobody believed in it. This is, of course. Yes.
So you were the radical thinker ahead of your time. The research that
I had worse names.
All right, but this is a family radio show, so we'll put that to the side. We can put that in the show notes if necessary. The Nobel Prize research that you've done actually has been attributed to allowing other scientists to develop programs to, let's say, unveil chemical processes such as the purification of exhaust fumes or even photosynthesis in green leaves. How is that? What's the connection?
First of all, photosynthesis modeling was done by me. So, but on the exhaust fume, I did not hear. Basically, developing ways to model how bonds are being broken in molecule in a real environment, not just in the gas phase, could be used to any chemical process, and it could also be used to exhaust fume, but it's really more for studying photosynthesis.
Okay, how about various industrial or medical applications? Do you see that?
Okay, yes. So again, the main thing that we've done is to emphasize chemistry. And for those who don't know chemistry, everything in life is chemistry. It's basically breaking and making bonds in molecules, and everything is molecules, including a lot of the way we think in the brain. Now, so what we done, we allow to model molecular processes in complex systems. And if you have industrial process, let's say some molecules, you want to break them fast when you put them on let's say, on a catalyst, which could be some material with a lot of big holes. Mm-hmm. You could model it by the programs that we develop.
Okay, and since you've done the research many years ago, can you show us some examples that maybe we would have seen where this was applied to improve our lives?
Okay. One thing is developing of drugs, if you have some molecules that you want to bind to a protein in order to prevent this protein from doing something bad in your body. So we have programs where you put in the program the giving molecule and you ask how strongly it go into the protein and stay bound to it, so it would not be able to do the bad things that it is doing.
We are talking with Aryeh Warshel, a professor of chemistry who just won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. He's been talking to us about some of the, let's say, the more technical side of the work that he's done. But those of us listening in Israel are actually very proud of the work that you've done, because you were born in Israel, and the work you did, and you've been away from home for a while, but we're looking forward to having you stop by again soon. But this issue that Israel is facing, and I know that you've said it doesn't really apply to you, of brain drain, A, is it a real problem? And B, is it just the free market and we should accept that as normal?
No, I don't think it's completely free market. I think Israel should try to do what they can to keep good scientists. The difficulty is to figure out who is good and who is not. And yes, I mean, one should try to keep good brains in Israel.
So what would you recommend if you were coming to visit the Prime Minister that he should do in order to improve our odds of keeping good people?
Again, there are limited resources, but if you succeed to identify a research which is looking very promising and in some cases different than what other people are doing, trying to give enough resources, not unlimited, but enough resources, is one way to do it. And sometimes also when people come back from a postdoc, identifying the most promising directions, which is very difficult, by the way, and then trying to bring them to Israel is another option. But it's having resources is the most important thing. You don't have to have as much as in the United States, but something reasonable could help.
A lot of the professors that I know, including people in my own family, I know that I think unfortunately for them, they spend a lot more time writing grants than actually doing research. But couldn't those grants be, is this your experience as well?
To some extent, but go ahead.
So if those people were in Israel, wouldn't they be able to go after the same grant money, or it just doesn't work that way?
First of all, people who are running the National Cancer Institute and the NIH have the same problems. Essentially, Vermas, who is running the National Cancer Institute, said recently in an interview in Science magazine that he liked to give to the top people basically money without writing grants. So the problem exists everywhere, in Europe, in America. I mean, it's become worse and worse. And the answer is that it would be good, like in England, in some extreme places like the Medical Research Council, they succeed to have support for top people without writing too much grants.
Mm-hmm. But then it becomes political, and people, in other words, who's the one who gets the money?
I have a very good story, but I'm not going to tell you. So it's almost like politics. I mean, if you give top people like the Max Planck Institute in Germany have directors who do not have to write grants, so it makes it extremely good for them and less good for others, but it is one of the possible solutions that you have to some people the luxury of not being forced to write grants. Clearly, writing the grants is a major drug that does not help science. I mean, there are people who are telling me that my idea would become more crispy if I write the grants. but A, it's incorrect. B, the more adventure I write in the grant, the less chances to get it. So it's a problem without a clear solution. But again, if one could have identified the top promising direction and prevent them from writing grants or giving grants for 7 years, this would have been great for some.
So what you're describing would be a situation where the government would actually put money into science. For example, maybe the chief scientist would make the decisions, and then those scientists would get to enjoy that money to fund their research without having to go shopping around.
Yes, and it's very, very complicated. And in a science magazine 2 weeks ago, there was a very interesting interview with the head of the National Cancer Institute, who addressed these questions and the dilemmas that he have, which is to have less money, but still to make less people writing grants.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about one more touchy topic that Israeli academics have, which is simply the issue of academic boycotts. Have you felt any of that, or do you think that it's actually negatively affecting Israel?
Again, I'm essentially quite extreme in this. I wrote twice in the Daily Trojan. Maybe you could find against an English professor who tried to introduce a boycott against Israel at USC, and I basically say that he is anti-Semitic, and he claims that he is not. So we had two articles, and he claims that he is being chased. It's extremely, and I made a point that he says that Israel bombed a university in Gaza. So I say, how dare you tell to people in Beersheba, where the missile come from Gaza, to blame them? But it was as pathetic as usually. So I really don't like these boycotts. I think it's a problem, and I'm not sure, and it makes me quite angry. And I always thought that it would be nice to boycott those who call for the boycott, because Jews have significant power in academic, but not everybody think like me.
I hear. Okay, we have been talking with Professor Aryeh Warshel, professor of chemistry at the University of Southern California, and he also is the winner of the 2013 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. First of all, Aryeh, congratulations! It's a great accomplishment, and I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. In the last few seconds, just tell me, how do you recommend people who are listening could follow your work?
Okay, so first there is, if you type my family name in English, Warshel, Warsagl, in Google, you will find, for example, my group site, and this is the easiest way to follow the work.
All right, and what we'll do is
there are nice movies and so on.
All right. So what we'll do is we will put a link to that at the show notes at goldsteinongelt.com. Professor Aryeh Warshel, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.